when you're in grief, you try to put it all away, because it hurts too much. And so you try to pack all the things away. You don't want to think about it. You're like, oh my God, let me never. Okay.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if like it's a person who died, it's that you lost a job, it's that you broke up with somebody. Like all of those things are their own griefs. Right. And when you put all the things away, what happens is that all of the good parts also are put away. Like we're not intellectually, emotionally strong enough to separate the experiences and say, oh, let me put the good stuff, the bad stuff away and only keep the good. We don't do that. We put everything away. And so one of the gifts of my book was that I was able to relive some memories that I had so hidden because they hurt so bad that I forgot the good stuff. It was like with my first daughter, who of course didn't survive her delivery, I forgot, she was my first child, my first pregnancy. And remembering what it felt like the first time I felt her move, I'd put that away. I totally, I had put it away so far. And remembering that and writing about it was such a gift. It was so beautiful. Yeah. Production is going. I'm in the 2 cars behind them, got the cameras in front of me. I'm watching the conversation. And LeBron starts talking about his opinions about politics.
Oh,
he had never spoken about politics in his life publicly. And then he starts talking about what it's like to be a rich black man in America. And when the N-word was spray painted across his gate and what he had to tell his sons. Girl, I was sitting in the car like, Carrie, just keep driving. Just keep driving and capture every moment of this. So he's divulging all this information. We're done with the shoot, probably 2 hours worth of content, but I whittled it down to 20 minutes that I felt like you could not get. I was like, I can't even get it down to a 30, So I put all 20 minutes on YouTube, which by the way is a marketing no-no. Don't do that. Nobody pays attention, right? 20 minutes of LeBron talking about his opinions. And Laura Ingraham saw it of Fox News.
Of course.
And she went on her program the next day and she said he should shut up and dribble.
Wow, that was the moment.
Yes. And so I'm on the phone with LeBron.
It's your fault.
And, girl, look, we were out here. LeBron is pissed.
Why?
Well, because he's mad at her.
Because, right.
He's mad
of course,
at the whole thing. Why can't I have an opinion? Why? It's I'm a citizen. I can have an opinion about politics. I can have an opinion. I'm a black man.
Pays
rich
taxes.
Yes, I can have an opinion.
You can have an opinion.
I can't just
Everyone
shut up.
What
are you talking about? Are you crazy?
Right.
And so that day, it was she had said those words in the morning.
Wow.
That afternoon, I went and shot an interview on ESPN. LeBron, I don't even know where LeBron was, but we all, were patched in. Mav, we did the interview basically defending him. That's when he also said, I'm more than an athlete.
Right. Wow.
I got off of that interview and went to meet Colin for lunch.
Marketing genius.
Oh.
Bozoma Saint John.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for being here. I feel like that's not enough of an understanding of all the work that you've done. Oh. I mean, marketing genius, I feel like is so small of your journey, your path, but it's just one way that, people can understand the great work that you've done. You've had a long, successful journey, but it took a lot to get to that point. And you have a memoir that discusses everything that you've been through, which is honestly remarkable.
Thank
to
you.
still be positive, to not be bitter, to be here and just exuding so much love and joy. How?
Girl.
How?
You heard the
Yes. Yeah. I heard it.
Yeah.
It's
There's
a
a lot
lot.
in those. We both said at the same time.
That's
It's
how
a lot.
we know.
That's how we
it's a
know.
lot.
That's the truth.
So what is the urgent life?
Yeah. The urgent life is more of a way of being than it is like a call to action. I feel like when you say urgency, sometimes it gets misconstrued like speed.
Yes.
Or like now.
Right.
With like some sort of haphazard plan.
Right.
Or maybe no plan.
Right. Just go.
Just
You're
go.
moving.
Just go and do it.
Right.
And that's not it at all. Like for me, the urgent life is an intentional life. Like I could replace urgent with any number of words that are about intentionality, about purpose, about feeling and intuition. The words that I like to use to describe my urgency, because it's really my life, even though I'm saying the urgent life, it's my life, which is the way I operate. In that, like, I want to do things in my life with intention so that I get everything that I want out of my life. And that's why it's urgent to me, because I'm like, hey, look, if I want to accomplish X goal, it just means that it's not about like whether or not it takes me 3 years or 3 months to do it. It's just that nothing's going to get in my way of doing it. And so when I am distracted by somebody else's need, somebody else's purpose, I'm gonna be like, no, you see, I'm living an urgent life. So I'm doing the things that I need to do in order to accomplish those goals. Again, regardless of the time, because urgency is about my intention to get exactly what I want out of my life.
Did you know, I'm gonna pull your memoir up, for your memoir titled The Urgent Life, My Story of Love, Loss, and Survival. Did you know, I don't know, like this was something you were going to do a memoir? Like early on in your life, did you think that you were going to actually sit down, write a book, share your experiences? You know what I mean? Sometimes you're like, how did I get to this point?
It was so funny. I have actually never told this story before. But when I was in college, I was pre-med. I've told that story before. I was pre-med, immigrant parents, they were like doctor, lawyer, engineer. There was only the three options. I happened to be good in science and math. And so when I went to college, I was pre-med. I was taking all of the full course load, but also fell in love with the arts. So history and English and just everything about the written word, and what our experiences have been over time. Fell in love primarily with African-American history, because to me, I felt very much like that spoke to my experiences, even though my parents are from Ghana and immigrated to the U.S., my childhood, my adolescence, my young adulthood were all about the African-American experience. And I wanted to understand more of that history and the ties to it. And so when I graduated from college, I took my MCAT. I was applying to medical school, but I said, you know what? I'm going to go sow my royal oats in New York City, okay? Now, look, I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I went to college in Middletown, Connecticut. Where I thought I was going to New York, I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But you were going.
Girl, I was like, look, I'm going to try.
Right.
With no connections, not knowing anybody. I was doing the temp jobs. I was doing whatever it took. And then divine intervention, I landed at Spike Lee's office. He had fired his assistant. He needed somebody to answer the phones. He wouldn't even ask me to be assistant. I just need to answer the phones.
Right.
Make sure that the lights were still on. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Wait, so how did you end up there? Did you apply?
No, it was my temp. My temp agency sent me there.
Oh, your temp agent?
Yeah, because
I
was temping. I was temping. And
wow.
Literally, I think I was the only black person in their roster. And so I literally think that they were like, ooh, who's black? Who's black? Who's black? Boz, put her in with Spike Lee. And that's how I got the job. And so I was answering phones. He just talked about this the other day that Bamboozled, which is the film he was working on when I started to work for him, is being submitted into like the Library of Congress. Like amazing.
Wow.
So he's carrying around the script for Bamboozled, and I'm looking at it like, I want to read whatever he's got.
Right.
And so again, naivete, I'm like, hey, can I take a pass at that? And he's looking at me like, you crazy? But I was like, yeah, please. I studied African-American history when I was in college. Like as if that's good, a pass.
That's going to make him hand it over
Talk
to
about genius, you know what I mean? But the very long story short.
Wait, did he let you read it?
Oh, yeah, he let me read it.
Wow.
But, here's the naivete of the time and of me, which turned out to be such a great thing. I took a red pen to it. Yeah. And by the way, it's currently one of his favorite stories. Whenever we talk or he talks about me, he tells that story that like I took his script. I thought I was doing him a favor because I was like, I'm reading this script and there are grammatical errors and I feel like there are areas where character development needs a little help.
Right.
And so I made notes and gave it back to him. And he was like, who the hell are you? Like, how are you going to? And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do that. Like I was just trying to help.
Yeah.
And so he goes into his office, he shuts the door, slams the door rather.
Right.
Very I'm sitting
Spike
there,
energy.
Very Spike energy. I'm sitting there like literally holding my purse at the reception desk, like knowing I am fired. Okay, can't breathe, thinking, what am I going to tell my dad? And he comes out and he was like, you made some good notes. You should stay. And that's how I got the job.
That is amazing.
Like, literally.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. And so back to like me being a writer, I, at that time, was just trying to find any way to escape medical school. And so at one point, I told him that I wanted to quit my job as his assistant so I could go write. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, and I had like and I swear to you, this is the actual truth. Like, I had the thoughts of wearing like a beret, even though I wasn't in Paris, we were in New York, but like, you know, wearing the black turtleneck and like going to a cafe and writing. That's really what I thought.
Baguette and just
Oh,
I'm gonna write.
I remember exactly where we were. We were on Madison Avenue on the corner of 43rd Street. And it was a little Chinese restaurant there. And we were sitting across from each other in the booth. And I was trying to resign.
Spike.
And
so
yeah, I
don't want to, but I have to.
You know, the credit I have to give him is that, and this is part of what has also become part of my leadership style, which is that he never made me feel small. You know, I never felt small in his presence. Of course, now I think about it, I'm just like, yo, a whole like Spike Lee, like he had so much going on, and he went to lunch with me when I was thinking about quitting as his assistant.
Right.
You know, and he was just like, Boz, this is a bad idea. And I was like, what do you mean? These are my hopes and dreams. I want to become a writer. And he was like, what have you read?
Ouch.
And I was like, I've read James Baldwin. I've read Toni Morrison. I've read Nikki Giovanni. I've read, you know, so I'm listed.
Great list. Great list.
By the way, all from my college syllabus.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? No books I had chosen on my own.
Right.
And he literally like just broke it all down and was like, you don't know enough. You don't know enough to write well.
Ouch.
I was like, what? He was like, you need more experience. You need to research. He was like, you think you just wake up and write? He's like, that's not what happens. He's like, yes, sometimes some people have some real talent that will allow them to write their first novel without any research, without any work. He was like, but no, if you want to write something significant, live and then write. Girl, I thought that was it. Like, I was like, oh, well, first of all, like, why is this so serious? And also, I'm not going to write ever.
Right.
Right? Especially after I got into my career,
right?
You know, successes and the awards and all these other things. I was just like, well, why would I ever stop to write? And so the book, I feel like, found me versus me trying to find it.
That makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
And it's so much more meaningful like that.
Yes.
It really found you.
It really found me. I mean, even to the point that when I went to the publishers with my idea, and publisher after publisher said, we don't want this book. We want the marketing boss book. We want the how to succeed in the C-suite book. We want the, like, tell us the dirty little secrets about, you know, Silicon Valley and tech. Give us that. And I was like, I can't, because this is the book that has found me, my life, my personal life, my tragedies, my losses. I am not here sitting in front of you successful because I have had this easy silver spoon life.
Right.
I'm here because in spite of the things that have happened, I have been able to overcome. And I want people to know that.
What are 2 things somebody can do right now to start living the urgent life?
Top of the list is that you have to live your own life.
Important.
You know, it sounds so easy to do.
But it's hard.
It is very hard. It is very hard. It's like, look, even you, right? New mom, you're
tired all
most
the time.
of the time living for this person who is solely dependent on you.
That's right.
I would argue that there are many of us walking around who are the consequence of somebody's unfulfilled life.
Wow.
You know, somebody who, whether a parent or guardian, a grandparent, whoever was taking care of you, who blamed you for the life that they didn't live.
Ooh, and they won't say it.
Of course they won't say it.
Right.
But we're walking around with that trauma.
Yeah.
How many times have people heard in their own lives that, like, oh, you should do it because I didn't get a chance to.
Right. Absolutely.
You know? Or like, I didn't have the opportunities you have. You should do this. You should do this. You should do this. You should do that. We hear it all of the time, and it is trauma. It is not helpful.
Right.
And so if you think that you are living your life based on somebody else's expectations, based on somebody else's hopes, dreams, aspirations, based on somebody else's need of you, whether a parent, a guardian, your child, your best friend, your husband, your wife, your partner, like, if you're living that life, that is not yours.
Right.
And so the first rule of living an urgent life is to live your life. And that is Very difficult to do.
Yep.
Especially if you've been living for other people. So take a look at it. Long, hard look. I didn't say you need to ask anybody. It could be in the quiet of your own bedroom or just as you close your eyes to go to sleep. Ask yourself, whose life are you living?
Ooh.
And once you know that answer, you can better address whether or not you're living urgently.
Wow.
Number 2?
Yep.
Intuition. In order to live the urgent life, you actually have to understand your intuition. And most of us, again, are living the logical life. You know, the pro-con list. The things that says, oh, you know, it makes more sense if I do this thing.
Right.
Or I need more information before I do that thing.
Right.
Instead of listening to our intuition. For me, it happens in my gut. Some people it happens in their heart. Some people it's the vibes. Some people it's like the goosebumps that end up on their, you know, arms or whatever. Like it happens for people in different ways, but do you actually listen to it? Do you hear it? Do you trust it?
Ooh, that's the
bigger thing. Like, do you trust it?
it?
Because you don't actually trust your intuition if you're not doing based on how you feel.
Right.
Because guess what you're going to do? You're going to call your best friend and say, girl, should I do X, Y, and Z thing? Or what do you think? I don't care if it's about your outfit or about your job.
Right.
The moment you ask somebody else for their opinion on what is happening in your life, you no longer trust your intuition.
I love this.
And it's like any other muscle or a friend. You know, like, let's just, you know, if you and you called me, like, Boz, I'm thinking about making this move. What do you think? And I give you my opinion. And then you do the opposite of what I said. I'm like, well, Nessa decided she wanted, okay, that's cool. Next time you come, Boz, should I wear this blue outfit or the silver outfit?
Well,
and I'm like, girl, wear the blue. Like, you look so nice. You like complexion. And then you wear the silver. And I'm like, this bitch here. Okay. You know what I mean? All right, cool, fine. Then you come, you're like, I'm so hungry. What should I eat? Should I have an apple because, you know, I'm trying to like, you know, lose a little? Or maybe I should have the burger because that's really what I want. And I'm like, girl, live life. Have the burger.
Right.
And you're like, I'm going to have the apple.
Then why are
you asking me these questions? The next time you ask me, I'm probably either going to not answer or say it more quietly. That's what your intuition is like. So your intuition is me in that instance. Where every time you come to seek or I'm giving you an opinion that you can feel in your gut or you can feel in your heart or whatever, and you turn me down, I will stop speaking to you.
Right. Wow.
And that's what happens with intuition. And so mine right now, look, my intuition is so big, so powerful that I cannot do anything but what she tells me to do.
I love it.
Like, ain't no way.
Right.
So those are the two things. It's like, first, are you living your own life? And then second, are you listening to your intuition? If both those things are true, if you are living your own life and if you're listening to your intuition, you will live the urgent life.
I love the intuition part because it's like, if you don't listen to it, it's going to go dormant.
Yeah. It gets quiet.
Yeah.
So that's why people ask all the time, like, how do I know? How do I know that my intuition is speaking to me? Well, practice.
Right.
You know, start with some small stuff.
And it could feel, you know, a little bit, you might be scared a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the push you probably need.
Yes. And by the way, the benefit, like any relationship or any muscle or anything that you're trying to grow, the more you use it, the more comfortable you are with using it.
Right.
You
takes
know?
time, takes work.
It really does. It really takes work. And for me at this point, like I said, there's no way. It could be meeting a person. It could be walking into a room. It could be somebody asking me to do something, and I will know whether or not I'm supposed to do it.
Absolutely. 100%.
And be comfortable saying, no, I don't think so.
Absolutely. I know someone's vibe.
Girl.
I trust myself to know if I walk somewhere, I think, no. I know if they want well for me.
Yeah.
I know if they don't want well for me.
I'm telling you.
I know, 100%.
Yeah. And then also, throw a little prayer up in there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whoever you're praying to is fine.
Please protect me in this situation.
Yes.
Oh, you need it.
Yes, keep me safe from forces seen and unseen.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's right. Seen and unseen.
What would you say in your memoir the hardest chapter to write was?
Oh gosh. Well, that's such a hard question because the way I wrote was the way I would tell any story. It's like I feel it's important to start at a place, which by the way was maybe the answer is that the first chapter was the hardest.
Really?
I didn't know where to
Off
start.
top. Well, I mean, that makes sense.
I didn't know where to start. And I thought I wanted to write about the end of my husband's life, because I felt like that was really an inflection point in his life, obviously, and in my life and in our daughter's life. What ended up happening is that, you're telling a story and then all of a sudden you realize, I got to tell you that thing that happened 15 years ago. Otherwise, you won't understand the significance of this moment.
Right.
Or it was like, oh, wait, hold on. This really funny thing happened. And then let me tell you that. Let me insert this joke in here real quick. And so perhaps the real answer to that is that actually there are two answers. I didn't know where to start and I didn't know where to stop. Yeah, I didn't know where to stop.
Did anyone help you realize where to start or stop? And they were like, let's talk this through, because you're not listening to your intuition. Yeah. You maybe were just overwhelmed with writing, or were you pretty clear?
Yeah.
Ultimately in kind of retreating into your own self and figuring it out.
I had some really good help from some pretty critical people, and actually it's an interesting point because oftentimes when I talk about intuition or I talk about listening to yourself, it is in the absence of taking anybody else's opinion, right? Because it tends to cloud your own. So I preach that very much and I try to even abide by that myself, right? But in this case, some of the tools or some of the people who became tools for me in the writing process were integral because I needed someone who could ask me questions about stories that I'm telling, who was removed enough from me that they did not know the answer already.
Right.
So in that case, Sharice Jones became an integral part of this process because she's a writer and a journalist, and girl, 10 a.m. Saturday morning, Sharice would be on my phone, Girl, I read that last chapter. Okay, so tell me, why did you hate her so much? You know what I mean?
Go back. What?
Yeah, what color was the nurse wearing?
Right.
And then, by the way, there were so many times where Sharice would ask me some little question and it would just unlock this whole chapter in my head that I hadn't thought of before. And then Meg Leader, who is my editor, who, oh gosh, Meg. There were several times where she would, something really painful that I would write and she would say, I need you to go a little further, a little deeper, please. And I'd be like, girl, I can't go there. I can't. She's like, okay, well, we're going to need to go there. So you can go there today or you can go there next week. But we're going to go.
But you're going to have to go
that's
there.
That's where you're going.
Is there a chapter, if you read it right now, it'll make you cry?
Oh, yes.
Instantly. Which one is it?
Gosh. I would say maybe Love in Black and White, because it's the beginning of the love story of Peter and I. And to me, it's just so improbable.
Yeah.
And so unbelievable.
It really is.
That like two people who were so different, who came from such opposing backgrounds, really had nothing in common. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's all be honest. You know what I'm saying? Could fall in love instantly. I just find that to be a miracle.
It is.
And how divine. And so it makes me humble in the thought that all of us, like sort of twirling around on this spinning rock, are able to have these experiences that we cannot plan, that we can't see, that are completely unknown to us. And if only we would let go, that somehow something magical might actually happen to you.
Your story, it's like you don't think it would ever happen. Right? You fall in love and you just think everything's going to be okay. And then tragedy follows. Honestly, you just think it's like in the movies.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
How did this? In the moments that you were just reflecting, and especially in a moment when you found out, time is not on his side.
Yeah.
And the inevitable is going to happen. Did you stop and think, is this really happening right now?
Oh, gosh. I can't tell you how many times I thought that.
Like, is this real? Is this a nightmare?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. All of
Why me?
the time. Oh, well, that's when my relationship with God also fractured.
Right.
That
Like,
was
why me?
Why me?
Right.
What I do?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been a decent person.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, a little drinking and smoking
A
here and
little
there. You know
bit
what I'm saying?
here and
Like, I don't pay every commandment, but like overall, I'm a decent human being.
Right.
Like, why?
Right.
I'm sure there's somebody else somewhere who's done evil, terrible things who could experience this, but why me? And over and over and over again?
I was going to say, it's also over and over and over.
Golly.
Like,
it just felt too much.
Right.
And sometimes still, I won't pretend as if that's in the past. Still, today, I will sit up and think, now, Lord, you and I, we've had this discussion. Okay, I'm gonna need you to behave yourself.
Right. Please.
Like, I don't even add the please. I'm like, you bet if you know what's good for you, you better behave yourself in this moment.
Hard.
No, because I think for me, for a lot of people, and what I have found since writing the book is that even though we don't have the exact same experiences, many of us feel the same way about why life treats us the way it does.
Right.
Like, why do things happen to us? Like, why can't it be easy? Like, why is it you see other people and they seem to be okay?
Right.
But yet you are over here struggling.
Right.
And then why is it that other people don't know I'm struggling?
Right.
Because like, why doesn't anybody help me?
Right.
And a lot of times the answer is because we're first of all, we're not sharing. And so there's some accountability that has to come with that.
Were you nervous to share all this information? I mean, you write about a previous boyfriend committing suicide, about loss of a child, your husband passing away from cancer. I mean, were you nervous? Like you're giving it to the world?
Well,
and I'm assuming not everybody around you knew all of these details.
Oh, no.
I didn't know all of these details.
No. I mean, my cousin, who is younger than me by 8 months, was surprised by a lot of things. And she's like probably my closest confidant in the world.
What?
Yeah. There were a lot of things that she felt that I remember actually one night she called me. I had her, I didn't let anybody read my book before I was done with it, by the way.
Interesting.
And when I finally did allow people to read it, she called me and she was in tears. And she was apologizing because she was like, I didn't know that you were going through these things. And I wish I had known. I wish I could have been better for you.
Yeah.
And it underlines the point that I just made, which is that like a lot of times we don't want to share the things because we don't want people to see us as weak.
Right.
We don't want, and for me, it was like, not just I don't want people to see me as weak, I didn't want anybody to pity me. I'd had enough of that in my life. I'd had enough of it as, an immigrant, as a dark-skinned Black woman, as like an underdog, that people often looked at me with pity and often meant that they underestimated my ability. And so how could I be vulnerable with you and tell you I'm struggling when I don't want you to look at me with pity? I don't want you to think I can't do the thing. Of course I can. And so even at work, at the time when my mom was battling her cancer, Peter was battling his cancer, Lael was 4 years old, and I had this big job at PepsiCo where I had just put Beyonce on the Super Bowl halftime stage, and people were like, oh, so what's next? What you've done for us lately? And I had all of these going on at the same time. I didn't tell a single soul that any of this was going on in my personal life. I didn't tell anybody. Because I just felt like, first of all, people are going to feel sorry for me. I didn't want them to, And also, I didn't want them to think I couldn't do it. Because why wouldn't I be able to do it? I'm a strong Black woman. Why not? I didn't need anybody's help.
But did you feel the loneliness? Were you ever upset, though, that you were just having to carry so much?
Girl, I didn't have time. Who had the time to be upset?
Right.
I was just trying to breathe.
Right.
And of course, in hindsight, and this is why, again, I decided to write my book so openly, was that in hindsight, how do I even say it? It's like we all have so many things that we're dealing with and managing. And I wish that I'd known that people would be empathetic. I didn't realize that human beings could actually be so good.
I have not heard that in a while. Yeah.
No, I'm telling you, people are, look, I feel like that's actually part of our challenge right now today is that we don't realize that people are inherently good. People are. They really, really are. And if you actually believe that, you will find the good people who want to be in your life. That's the energy that you need to exude. And that is why when tragedy after tragedy, when betrayal after betrayal, when things have happened to me in my life that make me wonder about humanity, I'm still able to sit here and be peaceful.
And not be bitter and be positive and not have any just resentment.
Yes. I believe in the goodness of life. I believe in the goodness of people. I believe that good things will happen.
But
and
how did you get to that point? I mean, the things that you are opening up about in your memoir, I mean, it could easily turn someone completely off of everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just, I'm done. I don't want to have to deal with you.
Yeah.
Or humans, period.
Yes. Or feel like life is going to be good. Right?
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I'm not going to pretend like, you know, I don't have my fears.
Sure.
That like every time Lael walks out the door, I'm not just like, okay, wait, hold on. So where are you going and who are you going with and when are you going to be back? And okay, let me put this air tag on you real quick so that I can follow you around. I still have that.
Right.
Or when I leave on a flight or on a trip or whatever, that I'm not sitting here thinking, what was the last thing I said to her?
Yeah.
But there are some practicalities that we actually have to do in order to get that peace. You know, for me, one of the biggest fears that I had, especially after so many tragedies, was just death.
Yes.
It was like, oh my God, death is so scary. I'm afraid of it.
Right.
And when is it going to come again? This out of the blue, or is going to show up and then they'd be like, oh, 6 months from now, this person you really love is going to die.
Because that's what you've gone through.
Yeah, that's what I've experienced. And what I've had to do then is to like take the real practical matters into my hands, right? So for instance, one of my biggest fears, especially coming after Peter's death, was that I was going to die and then leave Lael here by herself. And so one of the practical things I started to do was like plan for that. It's like, look, some people think it's morbid. I'm like, no, it's freaking inspiring, yo. Like get your shit in order.
How did you do that?
Meaning like practical things, like talking to the people I want to be her guardians if I'm gone. Making sure that I've set up her trust. Put some money up in there. Do the schedule. She gets this when she's 18. She gets this when she's 21. She gets this when she's 25. Okay?
That's right.
And everybody's aware. Made copies of my will. Told everybody where I want to be buried, how I want to be buried. You know, all of the things, because it gave me some control.
That's right.
Over what would happen should the thing that I don't want to happen. And therefore, it allows me to actually be freer. I think sometimes, and I write about this in my book, that we're so afraid of the boogeyman that you don't shine the light under the bed. And you should. Because maybe he's not there.
Right.
Or if the boogeyman happens to be under the bed,
you're ready.
You can see it.
Right.
And it's like,
and know where it's coming from. Right.
That's right. Does he have big gnarly teeth or not?
Right.
Is he ugly as hell or pretty?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Does he smell or he's got a little perfume on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes seeing what you are most afraid of is actually what helps you be free of that fear. Wow. And so that's how I'm trying to live my life now.
What would you say is the one thing that helped you get through the grieving process for your husband when he passed? The one thing that you really are, of course, everybody's different, but the one thing you feel could probably help somebody who may be faced with that same situation.
Yeah. Well, just recently I was actually thinking about this because we commemorated 10 years since his passing. And it wasn't, if I can be totally honest, it wasn't an intentional thing that I did, but sort of an accidental that has now become part of my daily life and my life with Lael, is that I keep him very much alive. You know, which then doesn't feel like total grief because he's somewhat still there. You know, i.e. like when I was joking with you that she looks like him, you know, and she has mannerisms like him, which is so wild to me because, you know, sometimes you think like, oh, somebody has mannerism because they've seen somebody else do it. But no, it's just freaking in the DNA, man. They're wired this way, you know? And so there's certain things that she does that I'm just like, yo, how
like
would
what?
you know how to do? Oh, the way she crosses her legs. Exactly like him. There's no way she would know that. You know? Or when she is afraid to tell me something, the way her eyes move. Exactly like him. You know, like she looks at me through the corner of her eye and then she like looks down and she'll look back up and I'm like, girl, you better just tell me because your dad did that and I know exactly what's going on. You know? But there's just so many things. And for me, it's like being able to celebrate that, call that out, talk about it. One of the best things that I found in writing the book, which was a gift I didn't even realize that I needed, was that, you know, when you're in grief, you try to put it all away, you know, because it hurts too much. And so you try to pack all the things away. You don't want to think about it. You're like, oh my God, let me never, okay?
Right.
And it doesn't matter if like it's a person who died, it's that you lost a job, it's that you broke up with somebody. Like all of those things are their own griefs, right? And when you put all the things away, what happens is that all of the good parts also are put away. Like we're not intellectually, emotionally strong enough to separate the experiences and say, oh, let me put the good stuff, the bad stuff away and only keep the good. We don't do that. We put everything away. And so one of the gifts of my book was that I was able to relive some memories that I had so hidden because they hurt so bad that I forgot the good stuff. You know, it was like with my first daughter, who of course didn't survive her delivery, I forgot, like, she was my first child, my first pregnancy. And remembering what it felt like the first time I felt her move, I'd put that away. I totally, like, I had put it away so far. And remembering that and writing about it was such a gift. You know, it was so beautiful. Yeah. And so in your question about, like, how do I sort of manage my grief, or how have I been able to live with it? Is it like I just haven't let him die? It's as simple as that. You know, that, like, the memories of him, the funny things, the quirky things, the things that he loved, I haven't put them away. I mean, even in, like, my, one of the funniest things in, like, sort of my work and, you know, personal life experiences is that, so I was part of the team that built Apple Music, right? And in developing it, we had to, as you can imagine, the back end of iTunes is what Apple Music sits on top of, right? And so in the process of lifting all of the iTunes catalogs into Apple Music, and therefore everybody's, like, albums and things that they've downloaded into Apple Music, obviously I had to do it for myself too. And what came along with it was Peter's collections, because, like, we had the same iTunes account, you know? And so there is currently a playlist on my Apple Music that is titled Peter's Songs. Because by the way, we did not have the same musical taste. So I don't listen to that joint, but it's there.
But it's there and you're not going to let it go.
You know, exactly. And it's like, it's there. And so for me, that is part of the joy. I mean, it's like, look, I'm laughing about his musical taste around a memory that could probably bring me to tears.
Was this a conversation that you always had with your daughter? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So, about him?
Yeah, and just about him and what happened.
Oh, girl, let me tell you something. Like, again, one of the greatest gifts of this entire experience was actually a really good friend, Mel Robinson, who is a therapist, counselor, psychologist, who said to me, like, you know, don't hide from Lael with all this that's going on. She actually said it when we found out Peter was ill, because she was like, you know, use the big words. Don't say daddy's sick. If you say that, every time you have a cold or somebody hurts their finger, they're going to think that person's going to die. You know, she's like, you got to use the words, he has cancer. Or tell her the type of cancer, even though she doesn't understand, she's 4. Right. You know? And it was such a gift because it allowed me the freedom of being honest with her. You know, and I think as parents, it is probably our nature, default, to want to hide the bad things from the kids.
Of course.
You know, you don't want them to hurt. It's like the worst feeling in the world to see your child hurt. And so it feels like that's what you should do. But I haven't done that with Lael. Like, she knows when I am grieving, when I'm sad. She saw it then. She sees it now. You know, it's like, I don't hide my tears. I don't hide my anger. I don't hide any of my frustrations. I don't hide any of that. You know, now, of course, I don't want her to have to go to therapy later for her mom's, like,
right. You don't want her to
enormous
carry
emotions,
right.
Yes. But what I don't want her to do is learn from me hiding.
Right.
You know, or not being honest with your feelings. And so for us, we have been very open about, you know, our grief. And therefore, I think that she's allowed in our house to be exactly who she is. She doesn't have to go in her room and shut the door unless she wants to.
Right. Right.
You know, that she doesn't have to do that. That it's a choice for her.
I love that you both just have this special, beautiful bond. And I remember how, and tell me if you guys still do it, you would take her on a trip for her birthday every year, somewhere special, and travel the world, literally the world.
Oh, yes. We still do that. Oh, yeah.
Okay, wait. So where was the last place that you went?
We went to Greece this year.
How did she like it?
Oh, she loved it. So our deal is that I don't do birthday parties. I don't do birthday presents. I do a birthday trip, you know? And she can really pick anywhere in the world she wants to go to. her responsibility is to pick the place and pick the itinerary, defend it. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not just picking any old place. You know what I mean? You got to have a reason to go. Like, why do you want to visit this place? What do you want to do? Blah, blah. Our deal is that she does all of that work and then I execute it.
Got it.
So I deliver, right?
Right.
And so she wanted to go to Greece to swim in the water. She's really a fish. And so she wanted to go to the black sand beach, the red sand beach, the white sand beach. We did, some history because we're both history buffs. We took these gorgeous photos, like these flying dresses photos that she wanted to take. She found the photographer. I was like, great, fantastic.
Wow.
Let's execute. It's
How
like
old is she now?
14. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's getting real aggressive. When she was 3, she chose a pumpkin patch, and now we talking about Greece. You know what I mean? And then even while I was just talking about this in the car on the way here, this last birthday, she we're at like the dinner, like our last night, and she gets really serious and she looks at me. She's like, well, it's like we don't have very many of these left. And I was like, oh,
wait, what?
What do you mean? Exactly. Because like I told her I would do it until she was 18.
No,
and so
I think
she
you
was
can
like,
extend it.
girl, whose pocketbook? You paid for this? Girl, where?
Oh, yeah, okay.
No, it's only 18, and then maybe she could take me. But like, she was just like, she's like, I want to be very intentional about where we go next.
Oh my God.
And
my
she
heart.
also said that she wants to travel to every continent.
I love it.
And so that's now the mission.
That is so
is
amazing.
to hit every single one.
Okay, so what is it? Our preteens, I'm hearing this, right? Obviously, Colin and I aren't at that stage yet. Our baby is 15 months.
Yes.
So are the preteen kind of vibes and energy real?
I think so. I think so.
So is she going through that right now or
Yeah,
not
I
yet?
think her own version.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like I'm the kind of parent that I don't like to listen to like everybody's like conventional wisdom. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because I just think that clouds you from actually paying attention to your own kid.
Right.
It's like if you're like, oh, people are like, oh, the terrible twos are gonna
Right.
come and all this, and so then it's almost like they are manifesting for you what your child is gonna do.
Right.
And so instead of you paying attention, because maybe your child is testing boundaries right now,
Right.
and here you are waiting for 2.
Right.
And then 2's gonna come, and then you're gonna be assigning them some, they throw a tantrum, and then you're gonna be like, oh, that's just a terrible 2s, and here
Right.
you go, excusing it, while like maybe they're just trying to figure out some boundary that you're not paying attention to.
Right.
And so for us, like, yeah, people have always said like, ooh, teenage girls, oh my God, their emotions and their
Right.
hormones, and they're gonna slam things, blah, blah. And look, I was not an easy teen, but for her, she's different from me. She's a
Right.
whole different person, And so her experiences, the way that she expresses herself is very different. And so I'm paying attention to that, paying attention to Lael.
That's most important.
I'm not paying attention to what everybody else is talking about, these teenage girls.
Yeah.
If she decides that she wants to, have an attitude, I'm going to check her. Not check the other 14-year-olds that people have told me to look out for, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Has she asked you any hard questions about your career, your work, or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
What does she ask?
Yeah.
Or what is she interested in knowing?
Well, because I haven't hidden a lot from her, she has been, she's had a very front row seat to the abuses I have suffered in corporate. She has had a front row seat to the micro and macro aggressions. She's seen me on the phone, when I have to stand my ground. She has witnessed when I have to capitulate and compromise when I don't want to. She has seen when I am struggling with whether or not to stay or go.
Yeah.
She's seen the fear. She's seen the triumph. She's seen so much.
Right.
And so her questions are more thoughtful because I'm not hiding anything. It's not like, she's like, oh, so how did that thing go? It's more like if there is a situation, I remember once, like, when I was working at Uber, that was a really, really tough job for me. It was very, very lonely.
There was a lot going on within the company, right? That you had to work on.
Oh,
What
there
were
was
some of
so
them?
much. Well, the company, I joined Uber at the time when it had been the golden child of like Silicon Valley, right?
Right,
Like this
right.
monster unicorn that came out
It was
of nowhere.
huge. Oh, yeah.
And I joined just as like the whole delete Uber campaign began, and people were like, oh, they're racist and they're misogynistic and the driver's going to kidnap you and rape you and kill you and like all these things. And I came in as the chief brand officer, which meant I was responsible for the entire reputation of the company.
Wow.
Big job, very, very hard job. 2 weeks into my job, the CEO and founder of the company who hired me gets fired by the board. I'm sort of left, out there because I didn't have any friends in the company at all.
Oh, my.
Okay? Again, remember, I'm a Black woman in not just corporate America, but in Silicon Valley, where there are zero in the C-suite. And it was all-out war. It was an assault on my person, on my reputation, on my work. It was war. And so I would come home flying, by the way, commuting from LA to San Francisco every week and have to gather myself to be the mother to Lael, to be kind and listening and playful when I was dressed for war every day. It's a hard thing to balance. And so sometimes she had to bear the brunt of that. And I recognize that as a parent that, look, we're human. And it wasn't always that I was able to separate the two and say, hey, look, like mommy is now home and mommy is going to be soft and mommy is going to give you a bath when I had blood from the war on my person. It's like, how do you do that? I'm sure I was scary a lot of days. And so for her, she got very, very good at, and she still is, asking me the deeper question.
How did you manage the situation when you were at Uber? How did you transform everything during that time? Like, how did you dig deep to figure out creative ways to transform a company's the image, I guess, right? I mean, that's ultimately what you had to do.
The point, yeah. Well, here's the thing about marketing that I think most people miss. It's like folks think that it's just about like, commercials
billboards
and pretty pictures and like cute words and catchphrases and stuff. But really what you're doing is you are both building a reputation for a person or a place or a thing, an idea, or you are manipulating people to believe that an idea, a person, a place, a thing is of their making. And so those two things sit in sort of, they're working together, to make marketing happen. And I quickly knew that like when I got to Uber that the issue wasn't that people thought like, the company is racist and sexist and all this stuff. Because have you seen the rest of corporate America? Like, where is it not? You know what I'm saying? And literally, I said that. Like, at an interview, I was just like, I'm sorry. So you want to bash Uber because you think that there are no Black people in the C-suite and they don't give women power positions and they're not paying their drivers. I was like, please show me the utopia in corporate America where this is happening. Show me the company, please.
Welcome to capitalism.
I would like to know.
Right.
Exactly. But it didn't exist. And for me, it's like the idea of Uber at that moment in time was trust. It was a trust issue. People didn't trust the executives in the boardroom to make the right decision. Whether it was about their colleagues, or it was about their employees, it was about the drivers, it was about you as a rider. Like, they didn't trust the company. And so how do you rebuild trust? Well, there's a couple of ways. It's like you had to put people in the car who other people trust. And have them tell vulnerable things so that it feels like, oh, I'm in this environment and I can trust this person who's saying things that are vulnerable to me. And although that seems like a logical thing to do, it's a hard thing to build, because you have to do it in numerous ways and you have to be committed to it. That's the other challenge about marketing is that it can feel so ethereal that it is hard to commit to. Because you're like, okay, we got to commit to trust. And then like 2 months in, people are like, oh, they trust us now. We can go. And it's like, no. You don't understand. Trust has been lost and now you got to rebuild it over time. You do it again and again and again. Hopefully you don't mess up. And take 10 steps back. By the way, it was while I was working at Uber that I met Colin.
Was that when we all met? During that time?
Yeah, during that time. Yeah.
Wow.
I was just about to leave.
Yeah, you were about to leave.
About to quit.
And then you went to WME, right? William Morris
exactly.
Agency, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's been a
So
while.
I was at Uber. And you know what's so... Actually, you know what? I don't know if even Colin knows this story.
Tell
which is
me.
that the day that I met him... Gosh, this is so wild. Okay.
I love these stories.
Gosh. Okay,
you know
let's
that,
tell you
right?
the story. Okay, so I mean, look, I was under attack. Okay, I was in real beef in the company. Like people want to kill me every day, literally and figuratively. Like I had like security at my house, like that type of kind of craziness.
My gosh.
Oh no, it was really crazy.
Oh wow, that's scary.
Yeah, no, it was really crazy. And I wanted to execute an idea around trust, right?
Right.
And using athletes basketball players specifically, who could tell us their stories inside of the Uber, right? So I hired Carrie Champion, who's one of my best friends.
We love Carrie.
We love Carrie.
We love Carrie.
Fantastic journalist, incredible woman.
We love Carrie. Yeah.
As the Uber driver. So that she could drive the Uber and ask the questions of the people in the back.
Cute idea. I love this.
Thank you very much. At the same time, LeBron was launching his production company, but he was having a hard time booking big jobs because, as you can imagine, people are like, oh, but you're an athlete. Like, what do you know about production? Why are you here in Hollywood? Blah, 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 blah. And so I called Mav Carter, and I was like, yo, I'm struggling. Ain't nobody want to work with me, okay? Like, I can't book a production company to save my life.
Why?
Out here.
Wait, why?
People didn't want to work with Uber. They were like, this terrible misogynistic company. Like, everybody hates them. Why would we work with you?
So they were turning it down.
Oh, they were turning us down left and right. I could not book a production company. And so when I called Mav, I was so desperate. I was like, hey, look, we're going to partner up, okay? I got some cash to use here, okay? You have a production company. Would you help me? And this is about basketball players. Like, would you help me put together a campaign where I have Carrie in the driver's seat, put some basketball players in the back seat, have them tell a personal story. Carrie will do the interview. We're going to film it. We're going to cut it to 30s and 60s. We're going to throw some on TV, throw some on like YouTube and have it ride. So this worked a little bit, okay?
Okay.
And then one day, LeBron, because he's seen the cuts, was like, I want to get in the Uber. I want to tell my story. And we're like, okay, everybody stop. We flew to Cleveland. He wasn't even playing there. We flew to Cleveland. Carrie's out here driving. It was wintertime too. Carrie is.
How's
First of all, you should not get in the car with Carrie Champion. Okay, let me just say that. Even as her best friend, I'll tell you that, girl, you don't want to be in the car with her.
Yeah.
The lead foot. It is dangerous. But anyway, so she's driving. We've got all the cameras everywhere. He was captain of the All-Star team that year. Oh, who was he? Who's the other one? Gosh, I can't remember now. But in any case, Kevin Durant. So he's like, the two of them are going to get in the Uber and tell their story.
This is insanity.
Can you imagine?
This is insanity.
Literally. So production is going. I'm like, in the two cars behind them, like got the cameras in front of me. I'm watching the conversation. And LeBron starts talking about his opinions about politics.
Oh,
he had never spoken about politics in his life publicly. And then he starts talking about what it's like to be a rich black man in America. And when the N-word was spray painted across his gate and what he had to tell his sons. Girl, I was sitting in the car like, Carrie, just keep driving. Just keep driving and capture every moment of this. So he's divulging all this information. We're done with the shoot, probably 2 hours worth of content, but I whittled it down to like 20 minutes that I felt like you could not like get. I was like, I can't even get it down to a 30, So I put all 20 minutes on YouTube, which, by the way, is a marketing no-no. Like, don't do that. Nobody pays attention, right? 20 minutes of LeBron talking about his opinions. And Laura Ingraham saw it of Fox News.
Of course.
And she went on her program the next day and she said he should shut up and dribble.
Wow, that was the moment.
Yes. And so I'm on the phone with LeBron.
It's your fault.
Girl, look, we were out here. LeBron is pissed.
Why?
Well, because he's mad at her.
Because
He's
mad
of course, at the whole thing. Like, why can't I have an opinion? Why? It's like I'm a citizen. Like, I can have an opinion about politics. I can have an opinion. I'm a black man. Like,
pays
rich
taxes.
Or poor. Like, yes, I can have an opinion.
You can have an opinion.
I can't just shut up. What are you talking about? Are you crazy?
Right.
And so that day, it was like she had said those words in the morning.
Wow.
That afternoon, I went and shot an interview on ESPN. LeBron, I don't even know where LeBron was, but we all, were patched in. Mav, we did the interview basically defending him. That's when he also said, I'm more than an athlete.
Right. Wow.
I got off of that interview and went to meet Colin for lunch. It was that day.
Did you tell Colin this?
The funny thing is, I didn't tell him directly because it was so raw. And
right, it just
by the way,
happened.
also, I was getting calls from HQ talking about, we don't know why you're on TV as a representative of Uber talking about this in politics, and that's not what we do here. And why are you so worried about all this black stuff that's going on?
What?
And I was with Colin at lunch and getting counseled by him.
Sounds like Colin.
Like, how perfect also. Like, just
how perfect.
Divine intervention that day of all days.
That is very...
At lunch that had been planned for weeks. I don't even know who set up the lunch. I don't even know why we were meeting. I have no idea how this happened, by the way. I can't remember now for the life of me why we were meeting for lunch. Don't know who put it up. I have no idea. But all I know is I came off that interview and went to my lunch with Colin, and he was like, okay, you have to breathe through this.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
he's very
breathe.
good. He's very...
Hey, bro, I want to go freaking protest. What you talking about? Tell me how to protest. You know what I mean? Like, what you talking about? Breathe.
He's very right here. You'll never see him get this high. Look, none of that.
No, he was so calm.
That's right.
And look, and you already know that, like, stereotypically, I was riding that lunch and I was like, yeah, exactly. I'm gonna tell Colin everything that happened, and he's gonna come protest with me, and then we just gonna kill all these people. That's not what happened.
No.
He was so zen about it and so calm.
Yeah, always calm in all the chaos. Absolutely.
But that is a gift.
It is a gift.
And it was a gift to me that day because it quieted my spirit.
Yeah.
By the way, I've never told him this.
I cannot wait to tell him this. Because that's going to mean a lot to him because, to have that patience, that control, and that the calmness and the chaos, that's special.
Sustained.
Yes.
Because how many times could he just pop off?
Don't worry, I do it. I do it for
Girl, yes,
I do it.
Let's all do it. Let's pop off right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all I want to do. I want to get active.
Let's go.
I want to get live.
Let's go.
But he was so thoughtful, is the word I want to use.
Extremely.
Thoughtful.
Extremely.
And it brought me back to my own thoughtfulness.
That's right.
And so following that, it was like, okay, Boz, get back in the lab. What are you going to do with this moment? How are you going to use this to further the message? Not just about the brand I'm working on, because I realized that was coming into an end, because I was like, oh, I'm definitely getting fired now. And how do I use this to also propel LeBron and Mav and the things they're trying to do? How do I use this to propel Carrie in her work? How do I use this to propel all of us in our stories? Because what LeBron was talking about was important for all of us.
And it's very real.
Yes. And so it transformed the way that I thought about that moment. And I have to tell you, it's like been a big influence since.
And then you went to WME.
Yes.
And I remember the great work you did there. What exactly were you doing there? And why was it so important?
Yes. Well, actually, so funny because I got the call from Emmanuel, who's the founder and CEO of Endeavor, which is the parent company of WME and the UFC and, IMG, New York Fashion Week. It's like so many things. And I met him and he'd actually seen the work I'd done with LeBron and asked me about it and asked why I'd made the choices I'd made and, the things I was doing at Uber. And I was like, oh man, you don't even want to know. I was like, about to lose my job. You got one? You have one for me? And that man said yes. He was like, actually, yes, I would love for you to come to Endeavor and be the chief marketing officer. He's like, I don't know what you do. He's like, I don't know exactly what that means. And I was like, don't worry, I'll figure it out.
Let
me tell the people I quit first, and then I'm gonna come over there.
Right.
But it was such a miraculous transformation for me. Also, it's kind of like, again, like just opening yourself up to your own destiny. Because without the experiences I'd had in Silicon Valley, with the myriad of people that I'd worked with, I don't know that I would have survived an environment like Endeavor, where there are so many personalities to work with. There was like so many, it felt like toys in the toy chest, It's like one day you're working like on New York Fashion Week with designers and models, and the next day it's like, UFC, and you've got to manage somebody's reputation over here who's done something. It's like, it was just everything in between. And for me, it was like understanding how pop culture continues to influence and make people think a certain way. It's like if you were looking at fashion, for instance, and thinking about diversity in the way that we look, whether that's models on a runway or that is designers who are given an opportunity to show, it's like, whose work are we seeing? Who's influencing what we are going to do next? It makes me think of the movie The Devil Wears Prada, right?
Oh, yes.
People remember that scene where, it's like, the big scene, right? Where the the boss
Right.
talks about the reason why the assistant is wearing the color that she's wearing because they chose it like 3 seasons ago. You know,
I
everybody,
loved
the
it.
classic
I
scene.
love that moment.
But I took that seriously.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, if I'm going to be, and at one point during my tenure there, I was the one in charge of New York Fashion Week. If I'm going to make the call on what happens on those stages, how's that going to represent me? How do I influence the generation of women who are looking at that, who are going to be influenced by who's on the stage?
Right.
You know, and it's like, if I can better help the careers of Ashley Graham or Precious Lee or these women who are walking in a way that they weren't allowed to walk a decade ago, that's going to make it better for all of us. And so for me, it's like that work was really instrumental and kind of felt like a full circle moment because when my parents immigrated to the U.S., I was 12 and we went to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And the only way I survived was by understanding pop culture.
Right.
You know, it was by being able to connect with my classmates and other folks around. So I had to quickly adapt to that, or fashion. You know, imagine you show up, you know, in 8th grade with the wrong thing on. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my. Yeah.
Come on. Or
Right.
music,
Right.
dance, like all the things pop culture. I had to become not just a scholar of it, but like the PhD. And so by the time I got to Endeavor and understanding how all of these things in culture, how they help us to speak to each other, understand each other, or influence each other, it did feel like, 12-year-old me was finally paying off.
And really understanding, oh, this is how I got influenced.
Yes.
Oh, this is what happened.
That's right.
I get it.
Yes, that's right. It wasn't your idea.
Right.
It wasn't. You think you like that? No, you don't.
Right.
I tell you who liked it. That executive made that decision about 5 years ago. That's
right.
who liked it.
Wow.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden you like it. Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay, so tell us something that you learned from the different places that, you know, you worked at. For example, Pepsi. What did you take away from that experience?
Gosh. I mean, I'll talk about the experience of Beyonce for Super Bowl, you know, the year that she...
Which year was this one?
Gosh, it was 2013.
No, or 12. Oh, wait, 13. I guess,
2013.
Yeah. Colin was playing in that
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Girl, ain't no way.
Yeah, in New Orleans, right? We're talking about
Yes,
New Orleans?
New Orleans. Are you
Colin?
serious?
Yeah, quarterback.
How are we discovering this right
Yeah,
now?
yeah, yeah.
Are you?
People
Girl, how
forget
do I
this.
not know
Colin
that?
is a Super Bowl quarterback. Went to 2 NFC championship games.
But
Yes.
2013, though?
Yes. Yep. When the
Girl,
lights went out and
yes!
everything, Colin, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
scream. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yes.
Colin was the quarterback. But isn't that weird synergy how this is all
That is
coming around?
so strange.
Colin, yeah, was in that
Yes.
Super Bowl game.
Well, okay, so let me tell you from my perspective
Yeah.
why it was so important. Because yes, of course, everybody was paying attention to the game. I was paying attention to the halftime show.
Right.
Because what people don't remember is that it had been 10 years since a black woman had been on that stage. The last was Janet Jackson with the wardrobe malfunction. Wow. And the arguments that we were having with the NFL, with production, with everybody.
Sounds about right.
Was about whether or not a black woman, even though nobody wanted to say that directly, would be on that stage and not have a wardrobe malfunction.
Wow.
And not only that, on top of it, would she be relevant enough to connect with everyone? Well, look, now, of course, people look back and be like, oh, well, how could you say that? Oh, my God.
Right.
But let's not, 2013 was a decade ago.
That's right.
And Beyonce, although a global superstar who absolutely deserved that stage, was still proving herself.
Right.
I mean, even in her latest film, she talks about the fact that like black women constantly have to prove themselves. She had to prove herself to people she was paying, arguing with them about what she knew was
It's
true.
insane. It's
Yeah,
insane. Yeah.
So I remember being in those rooms, writing the strategies, defending my strategy, saying, oh, no. She
Wow.
will connect.
Wow.
She won't have a wardrobe malfunction. Don't worry about the pyro. We got it. She's going to put on the show of her life. And then sitting in that stadium, actually, I was in the tunnel when the lights went out.
It's not your guys' fault, though.
Yo!
For whatever it's worth.
For whatever it's worth.
That has nothing to do with
imagine?
you guys.
By the way, also, just a little bit caveat onto
Yeah.
that as well, because I just love how the stories are just the
Yeah.
stories. Prior to that, just a few weeks earlier, she had been singing at Barack Obama's inauguration. She used a backing track because the wind was so fierce. Okay, we'd already announced that she was going to be the Super Bowl halftime show. And people said that all of a sudden, Beyonce can't sing because she got the backing track and we don't understand why it is that she's here talking about. So it became a controversy about whether or not how she was going to perform, if she could perform, if she deserved it, all of this craziness. So everything that was riding on that moment of proving not just her self-worth, but all of us who have ever had to stand up and say, no, I deserve this moment because I've worked for it. Not just because like you think I should have it, but because I actually deserve it. I worked for this moment. It was for all of us. And so when she came off that stage and then the lights went out and we were like, oh, now they're going to blame us for this too.
That's
every goddamn thing. Like we just can't get nothing right. Performance of a lifetime. And then the lights go out. You kidding me?
Right.
And so having to spin that into something.
Right.
You know, man, I was on marketing overdrive. It was my damn Super Bowl. Where's my championship ring at? Right. You know what I'm saying? I deserve a trophy.
Right. How about bows? I'm tired of this. Stop sleeping on bows. But that's amazing.
Yeah. So, but I really can't believe I can't believe that I forgot that Colin was there.
Yeah,
that was his.
That's right.
Oh my God, can you believe?
Yeah, because time flies. But I think in what gets lost in all of this are Colin's accolades. Because I think, look, it's understandable. People focus on something that's bigger than football, bigger than something that we can, just put in a book or it's pop culture. What he did was so much bigger than all of that with his protests. So, but people forget. And Colin was the 4th Black quarterback ever to make it to the Super Bowl.
You see what I'm saying?
When people talked about him, again, him as a Black quarterback, and people would talk about his style of play, they would try to diminish it because he's a Black quarterback.
Yes.
Meanwhile, that style of play is what is currently happening now. But apparently,
you see what I'm saying?
No team will hire him because,
Look,
we know.
Okay.
but it's those things that happen that, purposely they want you to forget the accolades. But Colin was playing in that Super Bowl.
That is so
And I didn't even bring up, this is just notes that I wanted to ask. Like, what did you learn from working at Pepsi? Like, I didn't even know
that we were going to
get here.
Yeah. But it's that.
That's right.
It is that. The lesson was the advocating, standing in our power.
Right. And I can't wait to tell Colin that.
Oh,
like,
my goodness.
how big of a role you played.
Believe. Yes.
In the entire Super Bowl to happen.
Let's just continue on that. Okay?
Yeah, let's go.
Because that's actually, girl, this is just so magical at this point, because that moment and that year was transformative for me. It was an inflection point, both in my career, because I was able to get that stage, be able to do it, all of that stuff. It was also the year that we found out Peter was sick. It was also the year that he died.
Oh my goodness.
And coming into 2014, I was on bereavement leave when it was time for the next Super Bowl, which I'd advocated for Bruno Mars to be on that stage. By the way, to the same kind of pushback. FYI.
Wow.
Yeah, they were like, oh, he's not big enough. He's not relevant enough. Da, da, da. By the way, for the record, Bruno Mars came out on that stage by himself and played a drum solo for about 45 seconds. I think it was 47 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. Crushed.
That's right.
That entire performance, okay? Before he let anybody else on stage, I'm going to prove to y'all that I actually deserve to be here. And I was sitting there in bereavement. Like, I wasn't even officially back at work yet, knowing that my bosses and people at work were contemplating raises and promotions and all that stuff. And I was up for a promotion, especially given the work I had just done with Beyonce and what I had just done with Bruno Mars. Even though half of that year I was battling my own depression, my husband's death, my mother's cancer, my 4-year-old daughter. I had done all of that in a year and still won. And I came back to the office and my boss said I hadn't done enough to get a raise or a promotion.
Wow.
His exact words were, you haven't hit enough home runs.
Oh.
By the way, I was not officially back at work yet.
Oh my.
I was still in bereavement leave.
Wow.
And it was at that moment that I knew that, like, advocating for myself, never in any corporate environment or any environment, letting other people take the credit for my work was ever going to pass again. Never. And so that's when I stopped saying, oh, we did this.
No.
We are responsible. Oh, it's easy to do that when you're in the
Right.
team.
And we're taught that.
Team.
Honestly, we're taught
There's no
to.
I in
Right.
team. Blah, 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 blah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to us, I call it. I'm like, oh, no. I did that. Oh, you forgot I put her on that stage? Oh, you forgot I wrote this strategy? Oh, you forget that I had that idea? No. It was me. It wasn't we. Me.
In fact,
Make it rhyme. In fact, put in a rap. Smoke that.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like such a transformative time. That entire year that changed everything in my career, in my life. It really became the inflection point for everything that I'm seeing now. You know, that advocating for myself, understanding the power of myself, making sure that I was no longer apologizing for who I am, despite the things that have happened, right? I was no longer hiding. It was like, look, in my next job, which came after that, which was to move across the country from New York to LA, to take the job with Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine running marketing for Beats Music, which was then bought by Apple, which then became Apple Music.
crazy, right?
Was that. It was like, hey, look, I came in as a widow. I came in as a single mom. I came in as someone who didn't understand tech, someone who was clearly very black in a very white space in Silicon Valley, because guess what? Dre wasn't going up there. Who had to go up there? I had to go up there. And in all of that, I understood that I couldn't hide anymore and that I had to bring all that forward. So anybody who's like, oh, how are you so unapologetic? And they want to throw it around and be like, oh, yes, I'm self-aware and I'm out here, but no, it's not that easy, man.
No.
You actually have to go through the fire to realize why you're unapologetic. So all those things that have burned you before, yes, go ahead, show your scars. And that's why I'm okay with being a phoenix. You know,
That's
because
right.
you have to thrive in the ashes.
What did you learn as the CMO of Netflix?
Oh, girl. Gosh, so much. Where'd I even start? I mean, I got that job in the pandemic, at the top of the pandemic. By the way, can I just also caveat the fact that, like, this is again why you need to listen to your own counsel and your own intuition, is that I know looking at my resume, it looks like, oh yeah, these have been such great jobs. Oh my God, you've jumped from this to this and climbed. No one, and when I say no one, not even my mother, ever said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Leave that job to go to that job.
Oh yeah, everyone's
Not a single soul.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
No one. So those moves, again, taking
Big
credit,
moves.
they were mine. I decided that.
Big moves.
Big moves.
Right.
So when I was leaving Endeavor, which was such a great job, I loved Emmanuel. I loved the job I was doing. Clearly, we were in a global pandemic. Nobody knew for how long. Everybody was trying to like just hatch it down. You know what I'm
That's right.
saying? Like, don't make any sudden movements.
Right.
Let's just ride this out. And we didn't know for how long, but don't do anything quick, you know? And then this big opportunity comes to be the CMO of Netflix. And I was like, oh, I think I'm going to go do that job. People were like, oh, no, don't do that. You have the spotlight on you. There's so much happening over there. It's like, it looks like a win, but could be a fail. How you going to do it? Because you're the first black CMO or first black C-suite executive. Not even CMO. There was nobody black in there. It was all white people looking at me. And it was like, oh, how are you going to do that? You're going to be totally downtrodden. And I'm like, I'm going to go. And it was so amazing to understand how people, again, this is back to consumption and how ideas are delivered and how our opinions are changed just because of what we watch. It was such a big lesson to me, you know, because before that time, there wasn't a lot of belief that like content could travel between places, you know? So it's like Americans aren't watching Spanish content, Spaniards aren't watching French content, French people aren't watching Korean content, right? But in the time that I was there, we had hits like Lupin, La Casa de Papel, which is Money Heist, right?
Wow.
Squid Game.
Wow.
Yeah, those shows, even Emily in Paris, for God's sake, that was, you know.
I love
like,
Emily in Paris, okay?
Like all of these hits that were cross-continental.
Right.
You know, which shouldn't have been big hits. I remember sitting on my couch when Omar Sy, who was the star of Lupin, you know, African Frenchman, who for the first time in late night American history was on the couch. You know, no one like that had ever been on the couch before. You know, French-speaking black man.
And you were a part of making this happen.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like tears because I'm like, here's an immigrant who is not well respected in the country he is, and he's the one who's breaking down the doors. Like, he's the one. You know, and then the fact that like we could showcase that or bring to life Squid Game, which is a
great
horror series. I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah.
Right.
That, a Korean man who'd been trying to sell it for 12 years had not been successful in doing it. But then found his home at Netflix, and look, I put all the marketing budget behind it, even though it wasn't really projected to win, right?
Right.
Yeah, I should probably put it against like the big American dramas instead of his show. But made the choice of like, we're going to put a lot of money behind this.
It worked.
But I think that, look, again, you got to take credit. Mm-hmm. And I think that a big part of what we're seeing with a lot of like cross-continental, more understanding, people want to get to know other cultures is due to the work I did. Mm. And so, yes, I take that credit.
I feel like people had something to say about you moving around in the sense of like you making big decisions for your career, for your life.
Yes.
Best thing you can share with somebody to really take ownership of their decisions, what would you tell them?
Oh, gosh.
Because I think it's important not to be scared to take big leaps.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, this is why it's like I laugh when I say that, look, I'm not taking anybody's counsel about my own career. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's the thing. But it's like a natural thing to do, right? It's like if you're being offered something else, it's natural for you to call your mom or your best friend or whoever you trust and be like, oh my gosh, so what do you think? What should I do?
Right.
And then both y'all, here you go, writing pro and con lists and this and that, right? Without actually listening to what your spirit is telling you, what your intuition is telling you. I think my future is always talking to me. I think my future self is always talking to me. Like, it's like those sci-fi movies. You know the ones where it's like the person jumps into the past and they see their past selves and they're like, yo, go left. You know what I mean? I think that's happening to me all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like my intuition is that future person's voice talking to me. And so it's like, the more I listen to it, the further I go down the path of like actually living out my hopes and dreams.
Right.
The less I listen to it, the more I'm blown off over here.
That's right.
And so for me, like I'm constantly thinking about that and the power that it has. And so for anyone who is questioning whether to go, stay, whether that's a job or it's love or it's anything, it's like, trust your future self.
That's right.
What is that person going to want for you?
Right.
When you get there, like, what is that person going to say about what you're doing right now? And follow that. And don't be confused by that. Don't worry about what everybody else is thinking and doing. And I know it's like such an easy thing to say, but I promise you that is actually where your joy is. That's actually where your peace is. So that's why I can sit here and be so joyful and so happy and so peaceful and so loving. It's like, it's not like I haven't had my heart broken.
Right.
It's not like people haven't deceived me, betrayed me.
Right.
It's not as if people haven't tried to murder me in the boardroom and on the street. It's not as if I haven't had my hopes and dreams dashed, but I'm a happier, more peaceful person because I recognize the fact that 84-year-old Boz is going to be so proud of the woman I am right now.
That's big. That's big. What would you say is the biggest lesson someone can learn from your failures?
I think, you know what? That I made them.
Yeah.
I think just that I made them. I think oftentimes like success stories, some people want to make them sound like they're just some fantasy that doesn't live in reality, as if like you always just made the right decision. And therefore you feel like you can't because you're feeling like you're not always making the right decision and you're falling down.
Right.
So if anybody's learning anything from my failures, it's that I made them. Right. They actually exist. There's lots of them. So if anything, know that my success story is littered with failure. I made them.
But it's in order to be as successful as you are now, you had to make those mistakes and have failures in life. And it's okay.
Yes, but it's very scary.
Yeah.
It is terrifying. I mean, I won't pretend like I haven't made mistakes or fallen down or things haven't been successful and then I didn't go hide in the closet. I certainly have. There have been many days where I was just like, yo, I am not getting up today. I'm not facing this world. I'm not doing it.
Right.
I'm going to stay right here. Somebody call in sick.
Right.
Tell my stomach hurts. Right. You know what I mean? I'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
I have plenty of those days. I won't pretend like every day is a brave day where I get up and I'm like, you know what? Bump the haters. I'm going to do it. No, sometimes I'm just like, hater, what did you say?
Right.
Tell me one more time just so I can hear it clearly and cry.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Or like you read some comments and you just like, wait, is my nose really that ugly? Damn, I guess it is. You know what I mean? Like There's plenty of that. I'm a human being. And so the success, yes, is like littered with failure, but it doesn't mean that I was always brave against the failure. You know?
Yep.
It's like I have my moments of real doubt. I have my moments of real fear. I have my moments of real uncertainty and insecurity. It's just that I choose to get up. And that is an active choice. It is everyday type of choice.
Ooh.
It is not casual.
Right.
You know, the day that Lael and I commemorated Peter's death in the 10th year of it, we chose to get up and go to the gravesite. We chose to laugh about the silly things that she remembers about him. We chose that I would drink a whole bottle of champagne at dinner while she sat back with her Sprite. You know what I mean?
Enjoy.
Yes, correct. These are choices that we make, and sometimes it feels like life is happening to us, and therefore we're victims of our life, you know, versus being the champions of it, being the ones who are actively choosing. And so, yes, it gives me more power because I'm like, I can choose to be in tears today. I can choose that. I can choose to be in love today. I can choose to be in joy today. I can choose to be in fear today. Whatever is happening, it is my choice. And that's what gives me real power.
I love that. Last question, because I know you have to run. How do you want your daughter to remember you?
Man, now you want to make me cry. How do I want her to remember me? I want her to remember me as a woman. You know? Not as some superhero mom.
Right.
But as a woman who was flawed.
Oh, yeah.
Who was excited. Who had pain. Who had love.
Well, I love you.
Oh, I love you.
And I'm so glad that we were able to be in person.
I know.
Because I haven't seen you since
my
2019. Because the last time we saw each other, you took us to Ghana with you, which was a life-changing experience. By the way, really fast,
gosh.
You've been taking people with you every single year for a long time. Can you just tell us why it's been important for you to do this work? Yes.
By the way, I loved that trip with
I
you
did
and Colin.
too. We there were some things going on that trip that we couldn't fully enjoy it, so we needed a redo. But
girl,
you do such great work, and you really, I don't know, you've just it's remarkable. We had a great time.
We had a great time.
Yes.
Despite
everything
things that were happening.
Right.
Okay? We made choices.
We made choices.
We had a choice to go.
And we were going.
And we were going. We had choices to turn up sometimes.
Right.
You know? And choices to stay in the room sometimes.
We had a great time.
Because that's what we needed to do.
Right.
Now, the reason why I'm so passionate about this work is not just because, like, you know, I feel the need to go back to where my parents are from or to reclaim my history, but because I think that the disparity and the challenge that is Black people's existence is rooted in our lack of understanding of the continent. You know, I will never forget when the president of Ghana was giving a speech at the UN in 2017 and said, until the continent of Africa is respected, no person of African descent anywhere will be respected. It was like the unlock. I was like, yeah, because you know what? Great marketing, okay, over the last 400 years, but especially over the last 50. You remember the commercials in the 80s and the 90s with the kids with the distended bellies and the flies on their eyes and all that? Or the campaigns which said, send 1 cent a day to feed this child in Africa. And then they would send you a picture and you put it on your fridge. And every time you opened your fridge to eat food, you thought about this starving, poor Black face that only deserved 1 cent. That is great marketing for why Black people are beneath you, why they're not valuable, why you are so much better than them. And it was wrapped in an idea of charity because you're a good person, right? But this person is so beneath you. And why would we think that that Black face only belonged in Africa? It was your neighbor. It was also the person at school. It was the policeman. It was whoever you ran into. Of course they're beneath you. And so my work, pro bono, in Africa has been about undoing that. And the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, gave me that gift. He's the one who challenged me. When I met him, I was on stage accepting an award for my business acumen. And he was receiving an award that same night on behalf of the people of Ghana. And I decided in that moment that although my mother had done her best to teach me our native tongue, that I was going to give my acceptance speech in that language. And I came off the stage in my butchered acceptance speech. And he did one of those. And he was like, so tell me, you've been doing all of this work for all of these companies, all these big companies. You're getting all these awards. What work have you done on behalf of Africa? And girl, he was like a real African uncle in that moment. You know, I just shriveled and I was like, I don't know. What can I do? Oh my God, I can't do anything. He's like, yes, you can. Come meet me in Ghana in December. And girl, I took my family and we went. And that, like, the rest is history. We wrote the strategy for the year of return, which is now in year 7. Its basic tenet is to encourage people of African descent to visit the continent. You know, return. And understand the beauty of the continent. Like, they've lied to you. You think that people are only starving there, but did you know that the music is so rich? That it is where these sounds come from? Did you know that the fashion is so beautiful? That the patterns you wear were created there? Did you know that the food that you eat is influenced?
Delicious.
By that culture, by those ingredients.
Incredible.
Girl, go to freaking Target tomorrow and go look at the shelves of your products and look at shea butter, look at cocoa. All of these ingredients that come are native to the continent. And so how is it that we are not proud of our own heritage? And that, I feel, is probably the work of my lifetime. Wow. Is that I want to change the perception of Africa so that Africans, regardless if they're born on the continent or born elsewhere in the diaspora, are seen as the proud people that they should be.
Thank you. That's such great work. Thank you. Thank you, Boz.
I love you so
I love you too.
We could talk for another 3 hours.
I know. I love you. And we have to do this soon.
Thank you so much.
I love
so
you.
Appreciate you. Please give Colin my best and my little baby.
I know I will.
My best too. Thank you so much,
absolutely.
Nessa.
Thank you. You guys, oh my gosh, I could have talked to her for like 10 more hours.